interest rates today, they're not 7%. They're not 9%. You can get a 30-year fixed on an owner-occupant property, a residential loan, for less than 3% fixed for 30 years.
You're listening to 5 Hour Real Estate Week, where you'll learn to consistently buy real estate in only 5 hours a week. So if you're ready to invest in real estate, achieve financial freedom, and own the lifestyle you deserve, even with your job, this is the show for you. Now, here's your host, Mike Butler.
Okay, and hello there. Mike Butler here, and welcome to another episode of the 5 Hour Real Estate Week. And today's topic is going to be part 2 of a 4-part series on, get this, would you borrow $1 million if you could get 3% fixed for 30 years? Now, okay, let me tell you the 4 parts we're going to do here. Part 1 was for family members and friends, and it's time to take action for them. So let's take I'm going to invite you and compel you to go out and help your family members, friends, loved ones, and share your real estate knowledge with them, because now is the time. If you've got parents or family members or loved ones looking to make a change, now's the time to pull a trigger and take action on that. And so if you go back and listen to the part 1, and I do a little deep dive into that for a few minutes. But now let's move up to part 2. Part 2 is for new investors. Part 3 is for varsity investors. And part 4 is for the veteran, seasoned, old pro investors. So today we're jumping into part 2, new investors. So as a new investor, we've all been there. Okay, I don't care what level you are, but once upon a time, we were all a brand new investor. And so when we learn about real estate, and hopefully you're a sponge to grab as much education and training and knowledge and expertise that you can from folks like me. I couldn't find a me when I got started. Anyway, so as a new investor, what I wanted to do, and this is the 5 Hour Real Estate Week, I very rapidly discovered that investing in real estate could catapult me out of my job, and it could deliver true financial independence for me and my family. And when I realized that, oh my gosh, I wanted to cram as much experience, knowledge, training between these 2 years in as fast a time as possible, like 18 months. So I attended tons and tons of seminars, boot camps. We didn't have webinars back then. We had teleconference calls. And I spent a lot of money. I invested a lot in myself and in my business. And I encourage you to do the same. And I expect that you are. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to me right now. So congratulations, kudos to you. This is what it takes to make you a superstar. So as a new investor, okay, we think it takes money to make money, right? We've all heard that. That's not the case. And I want to point out rule number 1 before we get into this piles of cash kind of concept. So rule number 1, and I encourage you to write this down, because if you write it down, you'll remember it better. If you cannot make money without money, you're going to have a hard time, and you can't make money with money. Now, that may sound a little oxymoron, but I'm going to repeat that. If you cannot make money without money, you're going to have a hard time, or you won't be able to make money with money. So let me point this out to you. So when I got started as a new investor, I had less than $1,000 in the police officer's credit union. Okay. And so the times, as far as the real estate market, not necessarily interest rates and prices and stuff, but as far as the financial opportunities to get long-term financing, very, very similar. So today, it's my understanding that if you want to buy investment property, a bank's going to make you do 20% down, 25% down. Well, guess what? If I had less than $1,000 in the police officer's credit union savings account, I can't put 25% down. So I had to figure out a way to buy real estate without going to a bank. And so that was a challenge I put on myself, and I figured it out. But let me tell you this, where I'm at today. So I have never, ever gone to a bank to buy an investment property. Never, ever. Still true today. I've never gone to a bank to buy an investment property. I want you to be able to do the same. So now here comes my little sponsor announcement. This episode is sponsored by, I want you to do the same by investing in yourself and getting my home training system titled How to Buy Without Banks, Money, Credit, Private Lenders, or Partners. You can get that at mikebutler.com. And when this first came out, I first started teaching and training this. It was how to make your first million with your job. So that's our sponsor announcement. Thank you so much, their sponsor. And let's get back to today's episode. So remember rule number one and practice rule number one. Okay. If you cannot make money without money, then you can't make money with money. So back to the $1 million, 3% fixed for 30 years. Those are some very, very exciting terms to me. So let's break it down and let's go back to my caveman brainwashed financial stuff that was brainwashed into my generation of people. And we were raised by parents and grandparents who lived through the Depression, or their parents went through the Depression, and they kind of crammed all this on us. We heard things like credit cards, stay away from them, they'll get you in trouble. Never, ever borrow money. Okay, always pay as you go. You want to have everything paid for. And Dave Ramsey teaches that, and that's great. That's good for those kind of folks. But if you want to jump into the successful investor arena, one of the rules you have that I highly recommend that you stick to, every deal must support itself. Every deal must support itself. So let's go back to the caveman brainwashing financial tips. Okay, let's think of a vehicle. I've got a personal, let's say personal promise requirement that I never, ever going to have a loan on a vehicle. And that was okay when prime was 7%, 9%, whatever. I can remember being excited back when Jimmy Carter was president, and I was able to assume a VA loan at 15% because prime was 21%. So let's talk about vehicles. My wife recently, she got a new Mercedes. Now, a new Mercedes to me is a car that's 2 years old. Okay, so we're never going to buy a brand spanking new one. So anyway, she wanted to upgrade her car. So she's going to get a Mercedes that's 2 years old. Well, she talked to Todd, my salesperson I've had over there for decades. And Todd says, hey, they're offering some great financing on this. You can buy this 2-year-old Mercedes that she wants and that she likes, and Mercedes will finance it at 0.019%. So that's basically 0.02% fixed. I don't know, 5-7 years, something like that. Okay. So hold on to this thought with me for a moment. Now, let's say it's $60,000. I don't know what the number is, but aren't they expensive today? So if that's going to cost $60,000 and you've got $60,000 sitting in your bank account, your savings account, or more than that, obviously, if you're going to pay cash for the car, would you rather take that $60,000 and pay cash for the car? Or would you rather keep your $60,000 and pay 0.02% fixed interest rate? Wow, I violated my own promise. So yeah, let's use their $60,000 and it's only going to cost me 0.02% interest. That's pretty good. Okay, so let's get back to, should you do this as a new investor? Think about this, $1 million, 3% fixed for 30 years. Your PI payment on that is $4,200. And so if you listen to part one episode, we had my soon-to-be brother-in-law. He says, I was taught to get your house paid off and all this and that. Well, that's true. That's true. We were raised that way. But, you know, interest rates right now today, they're not 7%. They're not 9%. You can get a 30-year fixed on an owner-occupant property, a residential loan, for less than 3% fixed for 30 years. So let's dig in, do a little deep dive here and go over some stuff for you guys, the new investors. So you can get great super low fixed rate loans right now for rental properties. And what I want you to do, think about this, while these rates are where they're at now, they're getting ready to change. There's all kinds of little tickler forecasts. And even back earlier in this year, January and February, they expected the little subscriptions that I do said, watch for something to happen in October. So anyway, just yesterday, they were talking about interest rates being raised 2 or 3 points to curb inflation. So now's the time to take action. So you can get great super low fixed rate loans on rental properties for 30 years. And I want you to borrow as much as you can for as long as you can. Think about that. Borrow as much as you can for as long as you can. 3% fixed for 30? Oh my. But here's what's going to happen. If you're doing these onesie twosie purchases and ones and twosie refis or using the Burr method there, you're limited to 10 loans. And when you hit the 10 loan mark, boom, that loan officer that's wanting you to bring them all kinds of loans so they can get commissions and all that, they're going to treat you like you got the COVID. And they're going to go, whoop, stay away. Okay, because you've already fulfilled the maximum that you can get for these super low fixed rate for 30-year loans on rental property. So that's one reason. So borrow as much as you can for as long as you can and utilize the limit of 10 loans so you can maximize the amount that you can borrow. Now, what if they change that number? They can. Back in my day, it was a limit of 4 loans. Okay, so now that it's up to 10, that's pretty good. So question, what would you do if the feds raise the prime by 2 or 3 points to curb inflation? Think about that. What's going to happen to the price of real estate? Well, are things going to slow down quite a bit? I think so. And combined with that, guess what? Remember the eviction moratorium the CDC put out there? Well, they also had a foreclosure moratorium. Guess what's creeping up right now? More foreclosures, 28% increased. I just remember the title. I can't tell you exactly where they did the research on that, but there are a stockpile of owner occupants, of investors, of all kinds of folks that have mortgages on real estate. Okay. And they haven't made payments lately, just like we had tenants that hadn't made payments lately. Some of them hit the wall, but anyway, there's going to be a boatload. There's going to be a tsunami of these things hitting our market as soon as they allow that to open up. And I think it has opened up. So you're going to have a ton of properties going to hit the market. And what's going to happen in our market is things are going to reverse. Now you're going to see too many properties for sale. And if they've raised the interest rates 2 or 3 points, now you're going to have not as many buyers. And when that happens, guess what happens to the prices? They drop. Are they going to drop in the middle of the road properties? No, they're going to drop at the extremes. The super low end, the super high end are going to take a bath, just like they did in the last tsunami we had back in 2010, 11, 12. So think about that. So here's what I would say. If you're a new investor and you can borrow $1 million at 3% fixed for 30 years, sign me up twice, sign me up 3 times, because all you got to do is make more than 3%. So let's say that you got $1 million and you go out here and you buy, let's say, 10 rental houses where the interest, the PI payment on $1 million at 3% is like $4,200. If you go out and buy 10 houses and basically they're paid for, yeah, you still got this $1 million loan fixed 3% for 30 years, but you use that cash to acquire rental properties. I'm telling you, get 10 of those puppies, you buy them right, it's going to smoke that $4,200 PI payment. And you're going to be putting cash in your pocket. You're going to have the equity when you bought it at a great price. For the most part, a lot of profit when you buy. And so then you're going to have that 3% fixed. Who cares if the interest rates go to 10%? You're looking pretty. Okay. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So then here's some investor pitfalls I want to share with you. When I have worked with investors who discover, trip over, or inherit an abundance of cash. Here's what happens. And I want you to be aware of this so that you don't do this. They start paying too much for properties because they got all this cash and they say, I don't worry about it. I'm focused on quantity, not quality. Okay. So you pay too much for properties, you'll burn up your cash real fast. Buying too many properties too fast, especially on fixer uppers. So let's say that you go out here. I can remember one time, this was in January, and I had 17 contracts pending. All I'm waiting on is a closing date. Well, my guys, and back then, most of them I bought were fixer-uppers. I mean, they weren't structurally, there was no structure problems, but they need, cosmetics. And so we had to update it. And there's no way that they couldn't get through 17 properties in a week. They couldn't get through 17 new properties in 2 weeks. To get through 17 properties might take 2 months or more. So think about this, your holding costs. Yeah, you got a deal and it's sitting there for a month and a half or 2 months before you can touch it. Your holding costs, property taxes, insurance, lawn service, all this stuff is going to eat into your profit there. So be careful on buying too many too fast, not because they're a deal, but can your rehab crews, your turnover teams, whatever you want to call it, your contractors, can they get through those things fast enough? So be real careful. So what do? So let's say you go out and you got 17 contracts pending. They're already done. Well, take maybe 10 of the worst ones there. So you can cherry pick. You got 17. Okay, which ones are my best 7 or which one's my best 10? I'm going to keep these. I would say the best 7 because you're rocking and rolling. So pick out the 7 best ones you want to keep, take the other 10 and turn around and wholesale them to other investors. And you know what? You can generate chunks of cash. I don't care if it's $3,000 a pop or if it's $5,000 a pop, but let's do $5,000 a pop. And you got 10 of them. There's $50,000. You can go out and buy another house with that, at least in my town. Wow. Isn't that pretty cool? So another pitfall is buying too many properties too fast, especially on the fixer-uppers, okay? So be aware of that. All right, burning up your stockpile of cash. So I see investors do this. They'll go out and they'll buy a boat. They'll go out and they'll buy some kind of 4-wheel drive dune buggy looking monster that could ride on the moon or Mars or something. Everything short of just buying a new airplane or a new jet. And be careful of that. Be very, very careful of that. So be aware and don't burn up your stockpile of cash. And then this is one thing that I see investors screw up on. This is a pitfalls with an abundance of cash. I want you to make this one of your personal financial requirements to keep a minimum of 3 months. I recommend 6 months of cash held off to the side, put it in a separate bank account. And here's what you're going to do with it. You're going to have 6 months of cash saved up to pay all expenses as if everybody stopped paying rent. We got close to that in COVID. What if that happens again? Would you go belly up? So I want you to stockpile and set aside 6 months of cash so you can pay all expenses if you get no income for 6 months. Covers all your groceries, your everything. And a minimum, start off with 3 months. And if you can build that up to 6 months, you know what that's going to do? That's going to allow you to sleep better at night. So with that one there, guys, that's going to wrap up part 2 as a new investor. And I hope these tips and strategies will help you to understand, okay, why you should and would, as a new investor, if you had an opportunity to borrow $1 million, 3% fixed for 30, all you got to do is figure out a way. You got that money sitting in the bank. Figure out a way to make more than 3% on it. And wow, you're hitting a home run. So adios. Let's see you on the next one. Part 3 will be Varsity Investors. Adios. Get out there and make some offers. Have a great day.
Glad you joined us for another episode of 5-Hour Real Estate Week. The best thing you can do now is put this information to action. To help you get started, Mike created a free resource for you called How to Buy 50 Houses a Year, Even with Your Job. Download it now by going to mikebutler.com/50 houses. And we'll see you on the next episode.